Bodies are very complex organisms. Each body part needs to work together. Each organ needs to work with a body part in order for the whole body to function, to eat food, to breathe, to drink water, to think. Nations are also very much like bodies. Instead of organs, they have institutions, governments, local governments, people, ethnicities, religions that all need to work together in order to function efficiently and well. The nation of Afghanistan has had a long and turbulent history. It first formed in the early 20th century as the Kingdom of Afghanistan, a union of many ethnicities and religions under one king, the Nadir dynasty. Well, the Nadir dynasty will come at an end in the 1960s under its own hands, as the king's own cousin would overthrow him and install a communist regime backed by the Soviet Union. Well, the US military, in order to combat growing Soviet influence in the Middle East, started supporting Islamic fundamentalist groups that were disenfranchised with the secularization laws of the communist regime. These groups were Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. As the Soviet Union collapsed, Afghanistan would enter civil war between the Republic of Afghanistan and the Taliban. Well, as the communists fell and these Islamic fundamentalist groups rose, they established the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, an Islamic fundamentalist republic supported by the United States. But this relationship of support would end on September 11th, 2001, when terrorists supported by Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, the United States ally, flew planes into the Twin Towers, causing one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in the world. After this, the United States would declare a war on terror, effectively declaring war on Afghanistan to combat the rising Islamic fundamentalism that had had an iron grip on the country for now almost a decade. So, this brings us to today. Afghanistan has been in absolute turmoil since then, many different civil wars. Today, the state of the nation is split between Islamic fundamentalists supporting the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, mainly in the south of the country, and in the north of the country, the Republic of Afghanistan, supported by the United States. But the United States, under President Trump, is pulling out, based off his 2016 campaign promise to end the so-called forever war. And this makes sense. Public opinion of the war has dropped drastically, as the United States has been there for over 20 years, and Americans are showing that they are no longer willing to spill blood for the country. In their eyes, the goals of defeating Islamic fundamentalism has been achieved. But we have to look at what would the effects be of the American troops pulling out of Afghanistan. Well, we can see three effects that are going to happen. The rise of more Islamic fundamentalist groups in the area, the end of fragile peace, and third, the end of growing infrastructure. Now, let's go back to that first point. Afghanistan for a long time had been a safe haven for Islamic fundamentalist groups, but due to American troops present in the area, this no longer has been for at least a decade. But with American troops pulling out, according to a Washington Post article published on November 20th, the NATO Secretary-Chief said that with American troops pulling out, once again, Islamic fundamentalist groups can find safe haven in Afghanistan. There's nothing stopping them anymore. So, with American troops inevitably leaving under President Trump, We could see groups like Al-Qaeda and Taliban once again gaining the upper hand against the defenseless Republic of Afghanistan. Now on to my second point of an end to the fragile peace that already stands. Last year, the Taliban and the Republic of Afghanistan came to the peace talk. They both sat down and were willing to make peace. But the Taliban has now stalled, according to a New York Times article published on November 10th of 2020. It seems that without American presence and American presence now further drawing back, the Taliban now sees no willingness to sit down on the peace tables and will continue to wage war until they have achieved their goals. Now on to my third point of an end to growing infrastructure. According to an article published by the Arab News on December 20th of 2019, most infrastructure in Afghanistan built within the last 10 years has been under the U.S. military, has been U.S. military infrastructure. So we can predict that with a lack of institutions in Afghanistan to uphold this infrastructure, it will inevitably collapse and never be used again. So we will see an end to a growth of infrastructure in Afghanistan. So to recap, if American troops pull out, then we will see the rise of more Islamic fundamentalist groups, an end to the fragile peace in the area, and an end to growing infrastructure. So just like a body can be affected with a virus, Afghanistan has been affected with a virus. And when a body is infected, it produces white blood cells, antibodies to fight that virus. For Afghanistan, those white blood cells and antibodies were U.S. troops. But now, those U.S. troops are leaving, and the virus will have free reign in the body. The Islamic terrorists will have free reign in Afghanistan.